everybody. Welcome back to another Hotel Tech podcast where we're featuring all of the innovators and influencers in hospitality. Michael Frenkel, right there. Great to see you, my friend. How are you, sir?
All right, Glenn. How you doing?
I'm doing great. It is so much fun getting back to it. We've been traveling because of the summer, but to be able to do this interview, and by the way, I should say I'm at Mohegan Sun up in Connecticut. So there's this background behind me. Plus, I have a terrible gambling habit. So I hope you don't mind. I'll be playing blackjack during this particular interview there, Michael.
Glenn, we're going to put that away just for a moment and focus on tech and innovation. So everyone, thanks for being with us. Glenn, good to see you. It's been hot and toasty around the country and around the world. And I think we've got a fairly hot show today. So let's get to it. Let's bring in our guests from AHLA, which are
Kevin Carey, Executive VP and Chief Operating Officer, and Chip Rogers, President and CEO of AHLA. Gentlemen, so great to see you. How are you all today?
Great. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, great. I think the place to start is, of course, guys, congratulations. You are launching a big event. I'm excited to see a hospitality show of this particular flavor return to the Las Vegas market. I believe AHLA many years ago did one in Las Vegas early on in my career. So, Chip, first question is up to you. What are you guys thinking? What's going on with launching this event next June?
Well, Glenn, as you mentioned a moment ago, you have some gambling challenges, and we knew that if we wanted to attract you, we had to go to Las Vegas. So that was really the determining factor.
Thank you very much. And the irony is I don't really gamble. I just love casinos. But tell us a little more.
Look, so we saw an opening in the marketplace. There are some great shows, and we participate in all of them. We provide enormous amounts of content for a lot of the major shows in our industry. We saw an opening here to bring together a really top-end, high-end, CEO-led technology show, mixing that with operations inside the hotel industry. And we believe we're going to bring together for the first time a level of participants, a level of speakers, a level of supporters in and around hospitality technology and what it can do for your operations, which is really the key to this show even today, and do it in a very special place. So we think that there's an opening there. We know at least this year here in the United States, there's a major opening, and we're looking forward to an incredible show.
Excellent, Michael.
Yeah, Kevin, why is this the moment, right? I mean, we all talk about technology innovation. We all see what's going on in the industry. Talk to us for a minute about why this is the right moment for this show.
Yeah, Michael, thanks. And we've been talking regularly to our stakeholders, not only our hotelier members, but also the vendor and supplier community that we have close relationships with. And as Chip said, we felt that there's an opportunity now to bring something new to the marketplace, and that there's a real strong demand around AHLA playing that role to be able to convene the industry leaders and stakeholders and bring them together in a meaningful proposition for the industry.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, and it's going to be great to see all of these things coming together. Plus, it is worth saying that you are partnering with our friends over at QuestX in order to make this happen. Now, I understand why Akshar Patel was so excited for his new job over there at QuestX. He, of course, is going to be running a lot of the show itself. And Chip, you've had experience working with him in the past. So what I'd like to know a little bit more about is, what are you thinking for that first year? What are some of the initial things that we out there as conference attendees can expect? And I can't wait to figure out how I'm going to be broadcasting live from there. But what do you guys think?
Yeah, we'll be broadcasting live. We can't wait for that. Thanks for that.
Yeah, Kevin. Yes, Chip.
And bring all your friends too. It's going to be fantastic. Look, one of the challenges that our industry has had when you think about the big shows is that you've got shows for investors, you've got shows for designers, you have some shows for just operators. And there's really been a gap for a major technology show that also focuses on operations. When you think about the challenges that hoteliers have today, and we're going to talk more about this later, the number one challenge is labor. So the never-ending question is, how can we do more for less? Well, the only way to do that, of course, is improve efficiencies, improve operations, through the use of technology. And so we absolutely know that there's a thirst out there for this. This has kind of been a missing piece in bringing all these teams together in our industry. Again, a lot of times you'll see investment people go to one show, operations people go to another show, perhaps even legal people go to a different show. We'd like to bring all those together under one roof, a big roof, albeit in Las Vegas, and we're going to have something very special.
That's fantastic. I totally get where you're coming from, Chip, because one of the issues that I see is our industry continues to be extremely siloed, even as professionals get more sophisticated in how they run operations. I'm always amazed that, like, you and I, we both live in all of these different worlds, but my technology friends don't know my design friends that don't know my financial minded friends. So how do you see bringing this together in a way that's actually going to be beneficial for all of the parties? And how are you going to be talking about connecting all of these different parts to make it more cohesive?
Well, I'll let Kevin jump all over that. He's kind of been the leader of this since this idea popped into our head, and it's going to be special. But Kevin, go ahead.
Excellent.
Yeah, Chip, thanks. One of the key differentiating factors, and I think you mentioned it, Glenn, our relationship and new partnership with QuestX. We really see that they bring some strong relationships and capabilities to the table that are very complementary with our own. So just the nature of the partnership moving forward will help create that differentiation in the marketplace. But as well, linking technology and operations and the application that can provide, whether it's on a guest experience basis or looking at how to optimize your operations in the environment. Those two disciplines with the industry leaders across a number of functions, what that ultimately will do, and we believe the benefits for the industry are that will accelerate business, it'll elevate the dialogue, and I'm confident that the experience we're going to create for the attendees, sponsors, and exhibitors is going to create a powerful value proposition.
So Kevin, sorry, Glenn, what can potential attendees expect, right? I'm going to assume there's going to be a big sort of educational component here, obviously shooting for a very wide swath of the industry and audience. Tell us a bit more: education, trade show, high-level conversations. How does this roll out in year one?
And let me just preface this by saying this is, of course, June 27th through 29th at the Venetian Resort next summer. Go for it.
Thank you for that, Glenn. Really, it's all those elements, but the foundation is having the right people in the room. Whether you're an owner, a brand, or an operator, or you're a vendor or supplier, making sure you have the right people in the room to accelerate your business dialogue, to learn and hear thought-provoking content from industry leaders, and to come together with your peer set in an experience that we're going to be building together with our partners at QuestX. We think all those areas are what's going to set this apart.
Yeah, let me add to that as well. When you think about technology and how it's being implemented in our industry, the leadership always comes from the top. We're going to have the best tech people in the industry at this event, no question about it. But we're also going to have the CEOs who are giving that leadership and providing those resources to get these things done. And so when you come to our show, you're not just going to hear from the tech experts, you're also going to hear from the people at the top who say, this is what we think our ownership group or our brand or our management company is going to look like by implementing new technology. And so we think that's a huge differentiator from what is already out there in the marketplace. And we're excited about that because people want to know what those industry leaders think, not just the technology experts at each brand.
Yeah, one of the things that I've seen, Michael, tell me if you agree with this, is that you get those CIOs there and those types of people, but they don't necessarily understand how the technologies that they're looking for fold into the rest of the organization. Additionally, I found that they're not necessarily the ones making those decisions, particularly if it's a massive brand or a smaller mom and pop type company.
Yeah, and I was just going to add to that, Chip, to your point as well. And this is something I've been working on for years, right? What you're really talking about is kind of building a bridge between the technologists, the innovators on the one hand, and the folks who use the technology, purchase the technology on the other side, right? And that's a green space that really needs to be filled, right? Who lives in that space right now? Well, it's going to be the hospitality show.
Yeah, exactly right. We want to own that space. We will own that space, but you're so right. Having the top level executive leaders talk about their vision for what their companies are doing in technology, also having their technology leaders inside their companies, those who are going to execute it, working alongside of owners and operators, that is the key because it brings it all together. Anthony mentioned it, I shouldn't say Glenn, I keep saying Anthony. That's his partner.
I know I'm trying to lose my hair.
Anthony's much better looking. He's much better looking.
Well, he texted me over the weekend, so he's in my head. But
yeah, he says that he needs to talk to you more about that.
But Glenn talked about it. There is a silo effect in so many of these shows, and people just kind of miss out. We're expecting to bring all that together. And so you attend this show, you're going to know what the CEO thinks, you're going to know what the CTO thinks, and you're going to know what the owner operator thinks.
Beautiful. I love it. Kevin, any final thoughts before we wrap up this portion of the show?
No, I think Chip hit on some of the key leaders who will be in attendance. Just to round that roster out a bit, there have been so many changes in our member companies' organization structures. Chief commercial officers today have responsibility for IT and investment. The chief marketing officer, he or she is looking at new technology as it relates to guest experience. We're going to bring all those elements together, bring all those leaders to the room, and really feel that we're going to accelerate the dialogue in a terrific experience. So look forward to having you guys join us next June in Las Vegas.
Excellent. Thank you so much for being here, Kevin. Really appreciate it.
You,
yeah. So, Chip, I think what Kevin is really saying, what you've been really saying this whole time before we move on into our broader conversation about technology, is that the more that the industry changes, well, maybe the trade shows and events that we go to where we get that information need to change too. And that's why you guys are going to be doing this event June 27th through 29th at the Venetian in Las Vegas. So this first question, or should I just continue rambling on?
Go ahead, Glenn. You're on.
All right. So Chip, one of the things that I've noticed is that labor issue that we're dealing with, that you were talking about, and how that technology could be a gateway. But how do you at the AHLA see technology as the overall connective tissue from what the hoteliers that are members of your organization are thinking about today?
Look, it touches everything that we do, all the way from the guest experience to payments to food and beverage to personalization. We can talk about all that. But the key issue that almost all hoteliers are facing today is labor, labor, labor. And it's not for lack of wages. I mean, we need to continue to point this out. You might have been able to make the case that the industry was on the below average wage scale a few years back. But if you look at what's happened since the pandemic, wages in our industry have increased 70% more than wages in the general economy. And keep in mind, wages in the general economy have gone up significantly, but we've gone up 70% more. Even with that, there's a scarcity of labor out there. And so there just aren't enough people. And so if you're going to produce a product or provide a service like hotels do, you've got to have the people to be able to do it, or the people you have must become more effective and more efficient in what they do. And so that's where technology certainly plays a role. Think about what a housekeeper could have done or would have done years ago and how they operate now. Now they know who's in the room, when they're checking in, when they're checking out, and when that room needs to be cleaned before the next guest shows up. We may not have had that information just a few years ago, and that's just one small example.
Yeah, it's so interesting to see how much things are changing and how we're all trying to figure out what that next state of technology is going to be. And I think, Chip, you were talking about siloing things before. I think that what we need to do is actually silo some hotel technology in our business, because one of the things I found is everybody just says hotel technology. They're not necessarily breaking it down into how we could use it for the entire customer journey as well as operations, and discuss it in those different segments. Michael, right? You're seeing this out there. We talk hotel technology, but we don't specifically say, oh, let's focus on technology that connects with the consumer in a more meaningful way, or a particular type of property level technology that reduces expenses. How do you think we could clean that up a little bit so we know more about what we're talking about? Michael, do you want to?
Yeah, I think that's right, Glenn. And I mean, actually, I'd like to follow up on that with Chip, right? Glenn mentioned sort of three audiences, right? We've got the industry, you've got the providers, on the one hand, the tech providers, the users of the technology, and the guest. And something that we're seeing, to bring everybody's point forward, is a real need to connect benefits to all these groups together, right? I mean, Chip, you speak about housekeeping, right? The kind of technology that's going to improve housekeeping, make it more efficient, is going to benefit the owner, the operator, as well as the guest. What's some of the stuff that you're seeing out there right now, Chip, that sort of brings these three audiences together, and innovation and the kinds of technology that can help us push forward?
Well, personalization It has just been amazing. I mean, I go to all the brands, as you might expect. I'm brand agnostic because they're all wonderful members of AHLA.
Yes, they are.
They are. But if you think about some of the brands, like I can go on one of my brand websites right now, and I can book a room, and I'm going to get my points, which of course is important to me. But I'm also going to get to choose, where is that room in the hotel? Is it a high level? Is it low level? Is it near the elevator? Is it not near the elevator? I'm going to get to choose what type of bedding that I want. I'm going to get to choose whether I want daily room cleaning or not. I may not want daily room cleaning. There's all sorts of personalization that I get to choose. When I check into that room now, anything that I want is just a text away. And by the way, my handheld device is now going to connect to my monitor, which I don't really care about the cable television part of it anymore. I got everything that I want on my handheld device, which I'll be able to project on my monitor. And so just simple things like that, being able to give the guest what they want in a very personalized experience, can all be done instantly, either through your handheld or through your laptop when you're booking your room. And then when you get there, everything is just at the push of a button.
Yeah, I'd like to posit this for 1 second. I think that we look too often as individual technologies as like silver bullets. If I do this, it's going to solve everything. I would suggest that we look at things a little bit different way when it comes to technology. Take a look at making things 1%, 2%, 3% better with each thing that you do, and then before you know it, when you start to put a lot of these things in place and continue to refine, that's when you're going to start to see some real big, meaningful changes out there. You can't solve everything with one particular technology, in my opinion. How do you guys see this, Chip?
Yeah, look, it's got to go hand in hand. We can't just hospitality is not just about technology. It's about people taking care of other people. But you can take care of someone better if you know exactly what they want and exactly what they need, and have the ability to access those wants and needs almost instantaneously. And so we're never going to get rid of the people taking care of people part of our business, nor should we. I was in San Francisco this last week, and I'll post on this in the next few days on my LinkedIn account. But I got to meet the first ever concierge in the United States. He's still working at the Fairmont Hotel on Nob Hill in San Francisco.
He's 750 years old, by the way, everyone.
He's a senior citizen, no question about it. But what a true gentleman. And, he talks about, perfect example. You may go on your phone and say, all right, I want to go to this restaurant because it's got a 4.7 on Google, and not know that the chef who that made that restaurant is either on vacation or left recently. You may see directions somewhere. You might not know that a certain road is closed down, or all sorts of things like that only a concierge is going to help you with. But the technology gets you going in the right direction, so you know the right questions to ask. So it all meshes perfectly well. You have to have human interaction. That's what hospitality is about. The technology augments everything that you do.
Yeah, Chip, you're absolutely right about that. And the way that I see technology is a great enabler. It's there to allow the people who are working to do their job better and make more meaningful connections with the folks that are within their building. That's why I like a lot about what we're seeing. Michael is working with some clients, for example, that are able to eliminate some of that labor behind the scenes. So if you're talking back of house and you could lower the FTEs there, you could repurpose that in a perfect world, or at least allow the front of house people to focus on what they do best, and that's making guests happy.
Yeah, I think that's right, Glenn. Chip, I'd like to take it down maybe one adjacent and different road. And if you don't mind, maybe dig into your past a little bit. We'll keep it clean and we'll keep it safe.
We plug into your past.
One thing I think we can all agree on is that the hotel industry is a laggard, right? It's a laggard when it comes to technology. There are legacy systems that are holding back brands, owners, and operators from moving forward. You've got quite a background, right? All the way back to Rogers Communications in the 1990s. What analogies do you see out there for other industries that have made progress, maybe from your own experience or for your travels today, that are models for ways in which the hotel industry can innovate better?
Well, I'll use one of the businesses I used to be in, the radio business, and I owned an AM radio station, which at the time, talk radio was all the rage. People liked AM radio stations, but it was a more than 100-year-old technology. It had massive limitations and was impacted, frankly, when the sun went down every night.
That's crazy. I can't believe you had an AM radio station. I did not know about this.
Take notes, Glenn. Take notes.
I am right now.
Yeah. And then along comes digital radio and along comes satellite radio. And then you start thinking, well, you know, satellite radio, you're only going to have the national show host, and I want a localized market. Well, then they were able to take those individual channels in satellite radio and further dissect them so that you could actually individualize into all of your major markets across the US. And over time, it just, that and podcast really changed the nature of how people listen to what they listen to on their way to work each and every day, or while they're out mowing their lawn or sitting by the pool or whatever they're doing during the summer. But it absolutely changed an industry. And if you got caught on the wrong side of having an AM radio station, your investment was going to get hit pretty hard. But it's those type of things that you can see transform an industry, and the same type of things are happening in the hotel industry. And yes, we are laggards, but I would hope that we could encourage our industry to continue to focus on guest individualization. And if you do that, you'll always be ahead of the curve.
All right, so I want to talk about that laggard issue that you were talking about. The older I get, the more I kind of understand, because technology changes so frequently, so rapidly, that if you pull the trigger too soon, a lot of times you feel that it's already outdated. Who out there hasn't had that experience of getting your brand new phone or your brand new computer only for the next week for the new one to be announced that it's coming out? So I get that hoteliers want to sit back, but we have to kind of find that middle ground. How are you seeing about hoteliers being educated now that they actually start to pull that trigger? Maybe not with the brand new technology, but at least with something has been proven, so that by the time they actually do invest in it, it's not like trying to get 2600 baud when we're already up to high-speed internet.
Yeah, look, the fact of the matter is, if you're going to convince an owner and operator that he or she needs to implement technology, you're going to have to show them how they're going to pay for it and how they're going to profit off of it. Doing simple things like moving operations to the cloud makes a ton of sense, especially if you have multiple properties. It also lends itself to the automation that we touched on a moment ago. And so just simple things, I know it's not technically simple, but moving things from that property-based system to the cloud can make an enormous difference, and the payback is almost instantaneous. But you know, Glenn, you really struck on something that it's always been a challenge in the franchised world that we have. The brands want to stay ahead of the game on the technology, and they can create mandates requiring the owners to implement certain technology. The owners are saying, look, if you're going to mandate something on me, prove that it's going to provide a profit in short order so that I can pay for it, or it's going to make my processes much easier. So there's always been that tug and pull and back and forth between the brands and the owners. I think normally, eventually, they actually get it right. But that's the struggle in implementing technology, is sometimes you don't want to go so fast that you're putting things in the room that aren't going to last, because that's not going to help the owners.
We've all seen those things in the room. Yeah, we've all seen those things in the room sometimes, Chip. You're like, why is this thing here? It was a great idea, just didn't pan out. Michael?
You know, in an interesting way, Chip, I mean, I think exactly what you're saying is right, sort of the tug and push and pull between brands, owners, franchisees. We did a CEO roundtable at the NYU show a few weeks ago, and we're discussing with 7 CEOs in the room exactly that question, right? What's going to turn the key? What's going to ultimately speed up the process of adoption and get the brands and owners to move more quickly? And the answer came back universally: we've got to, for the franchisees, right? We've got to be able to show that kind of value. These guys are being pressured by the labor and costs and other things. We've got to demonstrate to franchisees that technology is an answer which we, the brand, can help provide, that can push their business forward. So do we have a kumbaya moment here, Chip, around technology and innovation? Is that going to help improve relations in ways that have been strained in the past?
If it's the right technology. Again, if you're sitting there as an owner and a brand's telling you, you must do this, it's a brand mandate, then you're saying to the brand, show me how I'm going to pay for it, show me how it's going to turn me a better profit. And there are tons of technologies that can do that. And so I think we're getting closer. Certainly, we're in a day and age where owners are embracing technology. They know they must have it. But again, it's got to be the right technology. That's easy to say, but it's got to be profitable in short order.
Well, also, the right technology that I think is good for my overarching brand and all the franchisees within my organization is very different, perhaps, from a technology that an owner of a hotel finds value in. So it is kind of a challenge. Do you feel then that it's kind of the brand's role today to try to look at that bleeding edge of technology and really be the ones out there evaluating it, thinking of it, and considering it? Or conversely, should that really more come from the the individual owners or management company level?
It's got to be a partnership. That's what the franchise model is all about. If it's just the brand saying you must do this, at some point in time, they're going to overstep their bounds, and franchisees are going to be upset. Flip side of that is that sometimes franchisees don't want to spend any money at all, and they've got to be pulled along. And so we talked
That's
about
why it's so challenging. Yeah.
Yeah, but you've got to, like, if you're going to convince on either side, if you're going to convince an owner or you're going to convince a brand this is the right technology, you got to bring them on early in the process. And so it's going to come from both sources. There's no question about it. If it's unilateral, it's just not going to be adopted.
Right. Chip, let's give you a moment, since we're talking about bringing people together, to talk about and promote your day job, right, at AHLA. It's an advocacy organization. What are some of the things that AHLA is working on to bring those conversations closer together, and, if you will, to advocate for innovation and pushing forward in technology? We talked about the show, right, the hospitality show, which is huge. What else is going on at AHLA?
You know, one of the things that's greatly concerned us through the years are technologies that begin to eat into the profits of franchisees. That's a major concern. And so at times those technologies, or what we might call big tech, can certainly overstep their bounds. They have a very unique protection, as most people know, that they are allowed to do whatever they want and not have to face lawsuits for things that are posted on their sites, and that gives them interesting protections. It's CDA 230 when the law was originally written. But that is a struggle for some hotel owners. I mean, there's no question about it. You look at Google and you say to yourself, they can control almost all of search at any point in time that they want. They're not doing that now. They've been a very good, honest player, but they certainly have the capabilities of doing it if they want to. There's always been the struggle with the OTAs, though I think that relationship is in a much better position now. And so when we look at what limitations government may put on big tech companies as it pertains to distributing properties to consumers, that's something we keep an eye on and work on constantly in Congress. And interestingly enough, it's one of the very rare issues that both people on the right and the people on the left actually agree on.
No, they agree on something?
Well, they haven't gotten it done yet, but
that's fascinating. So is there any particular types of technologies that you feel in your role are really important to the overall health and security of the hospitality industry? Taking, for example, financial stuff. We never really talk about that. We always talk about things to make employees more productive or guests happier. But what about protecting money when it's going back and forth and transacting?
Yeah, safety and security is incredibly important. You know, you don't think about it too much until it hits you. Think about what happened, gosh, I guess it was about a year ago, if you guys remember, the Colonial Pipeline problem that hit all of the Southeast and really shut down the Southeast for a few days. Yeah. It wasn't that the hackers were able to shut off fuel and oil, because that was still happening. What they were able to do was get in and shut off the ability for Colonial Pipeline to bill the companies that they work with, bill their customers. And so they had to shut it off because they weren't able to bill it. And so that's a scary idea if you can shut down a good portion of the nation's economy all at once like that. And so these type of things, cybersecurity is a major, major issue. Again, doesn't sound that way until you're the one hit and you're brought to your knees, and now all of a sudden it's the worst thing out there.
Yeah, and that's one of the things with technology, because you can't see it, touch it, taste it. You don't even realize necessarily what the dangers are until, of course, it's absolutely too late. Michael?
Let's go one more level deep, if you don't mind, Chip, and tech. And, you know, the word is data, right? It's data that fuels all the technology, all the innovation that we see. It can be a thorny issue, right, when it comes to brands and owners. Speak about that a little bit, right? What's new in data from your perspective, and how should the industry be thinking about marshaling data, sharing data, using data in ways that really can help us all push forward?
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because somebody famously said all companies are now technology companies. And that may not be true, but it's awful close. And when it comes to data, people want more of it. They want to secure it. They want to hoard it. They don't want to share it oftentimes. Because when you have the data, you've got the keys to the individualization, and you have the keys to providing the goods and services that consumers want. If I know what you want and my competitor doesn't know what you want, I'm going to get your business each and every time. And that's why it's so important for us as an industry to be collecting as much data as we possibly can within the bounds of the law. I know as a consumer myself, there are certain things I don't want any company having, even my friends in hospitality. But if they're able to use that data to craft an experience for me or a product for me, then at the end of the day, I'm going to be better off because I'm getting exactly what I want and what I need. And so hotel companies are beginning to do that in ways they've never been able to do before. Just the example I mentioned a moment ago, what floor do I like to stay on? Do I want to be close to the elevator or not? Do I like soft pillows or hard pillows? I mean, these are all sound like simplistic things, but it adds to my experience. It's data that I willingly give to my hotel operator, and then they use that to provide back to me the service that I want and need.
Yeah, it's a really good point. I also think we need to reevaluate data every once in a while. I'm taking a look at the issue, Chip. Pre-pandemic, a lot of the major brands were experimenting with voice-activated technology. Think your Alexa, that sort of a thing. And there seems to be some more resistance. My hunch is now it's going to come full bore because I think culture has moved closer to it, where before it was a privacy concern, not so much today. Do you see issues changing as well when it comes to something that makes sense today, but 5 years from now might change when it comes to technology?
Look, I think from day one, privacy concerns have been out there, Glenn, and they're going to continue because as we just
I'm sorry, I go by the name Anthony now, Chip. Sorry.
You're good. Anthony Glenn, we'll just call you that.
Glenn, that's our new celebrity name now that we're dating.
Right, it's a famous actor.
No, just don't call him Collect. All right.
Yeah, look, security is all the name of the game. And I was at an event we hosted in San Francisco this last week, and you talk about data and why it's so important. So if I told you, and I'm going to get the number wrong here, but 3 76-year-old white males, if that was all the information that I gave you, 3 76-year-old white males, you might think, well, it would be very simple to market the same thing to all three of those because they're of the same age, they're white males, right? But if those 3 white males were Prince Charles,
right,
Donald Trump, and Elton John, and by the way, those 3 men are all the same age, you might say, well, I'm going to have to market differently to each one of those because they're dramatically different people. And so it just highlights the more information that we have on consumers, the better we can provide the goods and services that they need. But if you're not able to secure that information, you're going to lose the trust of those consumers almost immediately. And it's going to be broken in a way that you may not be able to get it back because there's so many other providers out there.
Yeah, true. I also think partially on the other side of the issue, there's so many data breaches happening, and I keep getting, so-and-so, such and such company has lost your data. At some point, it starts to become meaningless. I think overall we need to do a better job. Yeah, in that regard. Oh, I think there's a big thunderstorm happening inside here at Mohegan Sun.
All right. Chip, I think I'd be remiss if we didn't ask, since we have you here for the hour. You're a political guy. AHLA is, deep in the mix of DC and what's going on in the landscape. We're in an election year, and what happens in politics and what happens in consensus building across the country bears on the industry, bears on technology, innovation, everything else. What are you seeing out there these days? How are things shaping up this year? Can you give us a Chip Rogers or an AHLA insider's view of the months ahead on the political scene?
Well, it's going to be nasty. It's going to be filled with inaccuracies. It's going to be filled with accusations. And sadly, it's going to be filled with politicians who care nothing about the issues, but they care more about demonizing their opponent. And that's just the state of American politics in 2022. And it's very sad. Tell me the last time you saw a political ad where it was one politician versus another, where they were actually talking about a difference in a public policy that matters to people, like in our everyday life. It doesn't happen anymore. It's just nothing but attack ads. So you're going to see a lot of that. We've grown accustomed to that. We've grown weary of that. Unfortunately, people are inspired by that because for some reason, hate seems to drive people more than anything else.
Yeah.
Now, that being said, we're in a time of wild pendulum swings. I mean, to go from Donald Trump to Joe Biden, who knows what we're going to go back to next in the presidential race. But before we get to that, you're looking at a congressional race that's coming up here in November, where if you look historically since the 1800s, the president's party during the midterm elections almost never. In fact, only 3 times since the late 1800s has the president's party picked up seats. On top of that, you've got redistricting and a majority of the legislatures that drew those lines are controlled by Republicans. And so most people are saying the Republicans pick up the House quite easily. The question is what happens in the Senate. But if they pick up the House, it brings any legislative agenda for President Biden to a grinding halt. Through the legislative process, he will then use the executive branch and begin to use those powers to get done what he wants to do, which then usually ends up in court where the judicial branch will come in and say, you can go this far, but you can't go that far. And so that's the state of American politics right now. The pendulum is swinging back and forth.
So net, Chip, gridlock in Washington, good thing or bad thing for the industry?
Good thing. Gridlock actually is good because those things that typically get done, it's interesting. This is a sad state of America, but it wasn't until Obamacare that you had a major piece of legislation that was passed by a single party. That then happened again under President Trump with the tax policy changes that, again, a major piece of legislation. I mean, dramatic changes passed by a single party. Prior to Obamacare, almost every major legislation, even the Civil Rights Act, was bipartisan. It would be really nice to get back to that, but we live in such a toxic environment that just the mere idea of voting in favor of what the other guys want, no matter how good it is, will get you in a lot of trouble in a political primary.
All right. Well, listen, Glenn, I got us off into politics. We've got a couple minutes left. Lift us up for the final section here.
You want me to lift us up?
Lift us up.
You are talking to the wrong guy.
Fire us. Give
Frenkel. All right. So, Chip, when it comes to hospitality technology, what are you most excited about? Number one, as a consumer, and number two, for generally speaking in the hospitality industry, what do you think is going to have the longest legs?
One of the big changes that we haven't talked about today with respect to technology is around food and beverage. Before the pandemic, you had, your free breakfasts at many hotels. You would have some afternoon stuff occasionally. And then you had either food service or the restaurant connected directly to the hotel. Those were your options in that building. Now, because there are so many food delivery services that you can access through your app, through an app on your phone, you can choose from anything. And so food and beverage has changed dramatically. And by the way, that also helps the bottom line of most hoteliers. And so that's one that I'm very excited about.
Yep. And on that end, I would say I'm finding it really cool when full service or select service hotels, they open ghost kitchens within them. So now, instead of just offering the one brand in your hotel, you could offer lots of different brands that people are accustomed to and really start to make those hotels more profitable.
Well, you do, and it also begins to blend together what we consider full service or limited service, right? If you have all the food and beverage opportunities at your fingertips, no matter which hotel you're in,
true,
those lines begin to get blended.
Yeah, they have been blended. They've been blurry there for a long time. Because years ago, I remember coming up with this phrase. I called it quasi full service hotels, where you got like just one property that fits within that. Is like Hilton Garden Inn. It's kind of a select service hotel, but they have food and beverage, but they don't have a bellman, but they have other, but they have other services that I like. So already we're seeing a lot of that stuff in the middle with lots of different brands out there, particularly when it comes to that food and beverage issue. Michael, any more questions you have for our great guest here?
I don't think so, but I think we know that the hotel industry is pretty much AM radio these days, and we're getting ready to push it into the future. So, Chip, any final thoughts, watchwords? What are you thinking about? What are you reading these days?
Look, here's the bottom line. We can all get scared of the economic challenges that we face, a political environment that's toxic more than ever, war in Europe, China doing the things they're doing really about Taiwan. But at the end of the day, as people, we're growing closer together. Technology is what has linked us together. And when you know somebody, when you're able to connect with people around the world, things are only going to get better. And so there's a lot that people would want us to be fearful of, but there's a lot more that we should be excited about. And our industry, especially being the home of people around the world traveling, I think is a perfect example of what good we can do when we bring people together.
Excellent. Beautiful. Chip Rogers, thank you so much for being here. Remember, we'll see all of you guys next June 27th through 29th at Venetian Hotel for the Hospitality Show. Not just any show, the Hospitality Show. Chip, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Have a good one. So that's really interesting, Michael, getting that view from the top of the AHLA about how they see technology fitting into the wider part of the business.
Yeah, and I mean, if there's one theme that emerges from all this, it's that technology and innovation really is sort of an endeavor that kind of sits above all the individual problems, issues, financial, franchisee, brand, owner, data, right? It's got this overlay, as Chip was saying, of technology and innovation as a tool to help make these things better and bring people together. And in that respect, it's akin to hospitality and what it's about and where it's going, right? It's good stuff.
It sure is. And speaking about where we're going, Michael, look forward to doing some more fun episodes with you here. Man, it's been so great talking to a lot of these people. And if you guys out there have not listened to our other episodes, be sure you check out shows that we did with Lee Pillsbury, Raj Trivedi, Rafat Ali. My goodness, we've got some good people on this show here, Michael.
Influencers and innovators. That's what we're all about here, Glenn. Thanks as always for being my partner. Good fun.
Yeah, and thanks to you. And we'll see you guys next time right here on our Hospitality Technology Show, Influencers and Innovators. See you all later.